and a special rugby league edition of Sportsfan Radio. Plenty happening off the field in the NRL, Paul.
Well, off the field at Paul Vaughan's house. So decided in his non-wisdom, and it's got to be surely, Professor, the worst fated party since Novak Djokovic took his shirt off and thought he was David Guetta. Because what I tell you where this party wasn't hosted, old Mother Hubbard's house, because they've looked in the cupboard, the police, and there's a footballer. I don't know how you fit a 100-kilogram footballer in a cupboard, but old Mother Hubbard wasn't hosting it. Apparently there was just the boys there, which I don't really buy, but 13 of them, and Paul Vaughan's wife. But most concerningly, I think for all involved, the police are investigating, because if there were other people there, it would breach New South Wales government lockdowns and also the NRL biosecurity protocols. So there were neighbours, because there's not much else to do in lockdown, so you'd have a lot of eyes peeping through the curtains. And imagine the scene with blokes rocking up with cases of fever at Vaughan's house. Everyone else is locked down. There's nothing else to look at. And they're not small men. It's not like jockeys, carrying a little flag, little hip flask of whiskey. You got massive men carrying slabs of beer. I mean, the arrogance gets to me. And then what's happened subsequently, it's come out that Paul Vaughan hosted a Zoom, much like we're doing now. But the purpose of that Zoom was to get all the ducks lined up and to make sure everyone's saying the right thing. So that flagrant breach of the rules, I think, and he's also got form. He was in a COVID breach not too long ago, and also there's emerged today a sexting scandal with a woman, very unsavoury conduct. So those three strikes combined was enough to cost the party host $1 million, $200,000 this year, and his contract for next year, $800,000 torn up. 13 players, a total of 20 matches suspension, and it's going to be spread across 3 games. Otherwise, the Dragons would be a rabble. They'd be asking local tradies to step up and play. So it's really going to cost a lot of people. Now, what I found very interesting as well is the State of Origin players weren't at the party. The young ones weren't at the party. Apparently, there was a separate WhatsApp group for these rebels, if you call it that, who were the ones who went to this party. So I don't think it was a case of the Origin players heard about it and said, we're not in. I just don't think that they were invited. So that in itself has to comment a bit on the Dragons culture, that you've got separate groups there. And a very good interview with Benji Marshall I just watched earlier, and he said he'd be horrified if it happened at his club, my club, the Rabbitohs, because he'd say something about it. This is ridiculous, boys. This is our livelihood. And you've got people out of work. You've got people in lockdown. You've got most of the state in lockdown. So just the flagrant disregard is absolutely astounding. And there's been a grovelling apology from Paul Vaughan, but he doesn't answer the tough questions. Is why do you not think the rules applied to you? How did you think you'd ever get away with this? And you're probably only sorry because you got caught. That were all the questions there. There's a big question mark on why Jack de Belin, who we know's just been found not guilty, the hung jury on serious sexual assault charges, why he hasn't had his contract torn up. That's a very interesting one, but I think it's the form of Paul Vaughan previously, the fact he hosted the party. Jack de Belin apparently hid under a bed, if you don't mind, Professor. So it wouldn't have been a little trundle thing, because he's about 110 kilograms. So it must have been a sizable number there, the bed that managed to fit Jack de Belin under it. But he was hiding from the police, no doubt knowing how much trouble he'll be in and is in.
Paul Vaughan can no longer doubt the
being found. So it's absolutely. So I've just got an interview there in the background. It's everywhere in rugby league town, this story. So it'll certainly set the Dragons back. De Belin hasn't got off scot-free. He's got $42,000 fine, if you don't mind, and a 1-week ban. But interestingly as well, the player managers are already circling and offering players to the Dragons with the $1 million they've got to spend, one of which being Tavita Pangai Jr., who is being shopped around to everyone, it seems. So I just find it astounding, the whole saga, and it has the potential, if there are other people, you can isolate the Dragons, but if there were wives, girlfriends, partners, whoever, at this party, that would put the next Dragons game into jeopardy. But also, how far down the track do you go with these people that could have brought? And if there's a COVID positive in amongst all this, the whole show could be over.
Yeah. I'm surprised that DeBellin hasn't lost his contract, especially after it's alleged that he told the club that he was out walking the dog.
Well, it surprises me as well. You've got to understand that the coach, Hook, Anthony Griffin, is one of the tougher men in rugby league. One thing he is big on is honesty, and he would not be impressed at all with all these players lying to him. He'd given specific directions to these players. You've just had a great win. You've made it into the 8, but just go home to your parents or to your where you live. Don't do anything stupid. And they've gone directly against his words. So that would really be a breach of trust of the Dragons between the coach who'd got them into the 8. That's what he'd done. And that is a brilliant effort with this group of players, with no disrespect to the Dragons. And then they turn around and slap him in the face with this. I
see that 2 of the players in attendance were one player who's regularly mentioned on Sportsfan Radio. This time he was the Nufty, Matt Duffy.
He may have formed the view that he's got nothing to lose because he can't find a deal anywhere. If he hasn't decided to go to the Super League, that'd be his only option. He might have already thought his career's over, so why not have some fun? But it's got to be the most expensive barbecue scene in quite some time for all these players. And it's just an absolute astounding that they could get away with it, making noise until late in the night. Paul Vaughan was asked, what did you think when the police arrived? I thought he might have dropped an F-bomb, but he said disappointed. Well, when the neighbours are in lockdown and you've got the boys carrying on, singing at the top of their lungs, you're going to get a knock on the door, I'd say.
The other player, or one of the other players involved, who won't be at the club next year, Corey Norman, not bad that he left his car, which has personalised number plates, outside Vaughan's house. So he probably was very easy to find.
And I don't know how they thought they were going to get home, these boys, because they all have to breach the protocols getting home because they'd be asked, where have you come from? So I'm not sure if they thought it all through, but someone surely must have thought this isn't a good idea, perhaps not in rugby league terms, maybe an oxymoron to be thinking smart as an NRL player in this day and age, but the players who are doing the right thing, as someone pointed out, the Warriors aren't going to see their family for months stuck in their hotel rooms in their bubble, and yet these players took it on themselves to have a party. Just ridiculous.
Luckily for the Dragons, they're on the bye this week. Their next game's Friday week against Manly at Brookvale. As a tipster and a punter, I think I'd already be having Manly's name penned in for the win.
Well, tell Schooner to put a second mortgage on his house and you could take the $1. What you'll find, and the NRL has been asked whether they can put all the suspensions into one game and call up the local bricklayer, because that's a game they're going to lose. And they've got the Rabbitohs 2 games after that with the Titans in the middle of that very, very, very tough sandwich. So you'll probably find the Dragons are going to rest or suspend the players for the matches they've probably already given up on. So they'll just try and win that Titans match, which is winnable, but they won't be beating the Rabbitohs or Manly even at full strength at current form.
All right, Paul, we may as well talk a little bit of rugby league stuff that's happening on the field. This week before Sportsfan Radio on Sunday, the Thursday night game, Manly playing the Raiders at Brookvale. The Raiders' form's been terrible. Manly's has been terrific. Surely Manly would be trying to win this one to maybe sneak into the top 4.
Well, that's Manly's intention. They're playing some very good football. Tommy Trbojevic, who's going to eclipse Latrell Mitchell as my player of the game, player of the year, easily. So I just can't see them being stopped. The Raiders are just woeful at the moment. And there's already talk about a full clean out of the place, and that may extend to the coach, Ricky Stewart, which I never thought I'd say.
Friday night, your Bunnies playing the North Queensland Cowboys. The Cowboys having a very disappointing season. The Rabbitohs, top 3 material, I would have thought.
We're just rolling along. I think we're one of 3 teams, maybe Manly, but I just don't think they're quite at that level yet. Storm and Panthers, and then a bit of a gap to the Rabbitohs. We're certainly up there. But Wayne Bennett is pretty wily, as all you have to look at is how the Queensland team was this year. compared to last year when he pulled a rabbit, forgive me, out of a hat with that Maroons team last year. So Wayne Bennett will have a few tricks up his sleeve yet, but the Panthers' injury to Cleary is massive, and Jerome Luai, so that might bring them back to the pack. Storm and our competition favourites, not surprisingly, and what a way that would be for Craig Bellamy to get a win this year. So I think we should win that match. The Cowboys just, I don't think, have enough to bother us.
Now, Saturday, big game. Can the Bulldogs not win? Can the Bulldogs score against the Roosters?
Well, you've got some players coming back. I haven't actually checked the market. Do you have it there? Because the Roosters have got more men down than Saving Private Ryan. So your Dogs have a few players coming back. It might be closer than the market suggests. I'm not tipping a Dogs win. I don't want to get your hopes up too much, but you'll have to score surely.
Sydney Roosters are $1.10, Paul, at the moment. Canterbury, $7.
I'm surprised about that. I actually think it'll be closer than what many expect.
$1.90. The line is 21.5, plus 21.5.
Yeah, well, is there a market on the Dogs scoring? I'd get your money on that. They've got to find something. They just can't be that bad. Trent Barrett was the attacking coach at the Panthers. I'm still trying to process it. Next year's going to be better. You're going to have Addo Carr there. You're seeing what Burton's doing at the Panthers. You'd love to get your hands on Brandon Smith from the Storm to play number 9. If that can all happen for you, then you'll have a very different expression on your face next year watching the Dogs.
Yeah, the expression on my face this year usually is a wince.
Yes.
After I've read the score, they're almost unwatchable, Paul, really.
It has been putrid, really bad. So I'm surprised about that. I thought Barrett could coach better. I haven't heard that there's any significant issues at the dressing room that he's lost. It just doesn't. He seemed lost, though. And you've got quite a few lost figures in rugby league at the moment, quite a few people, none more so than a good man, Anthony Griffin, a very fine man who's upstanding and hardworking and absolutely devastated by what's happened. Probably second only to Cherry Evans' face after the second origin in terms of how deflated a man can look.
All right, Paul, thanks very much for sharing some time with us. Always good to talk with you about rugby league, and no doubt we'll do a bit more on Sunday in Sportsfan Radio.
Just check your cupboards before you go to bed. Make sure there's no big men hiding in there, Professor, before you jump into bed tonight.
Thanks, Paul.